What's happening?
Organic. Needless to say, if you're here, you want to brave the juicy spoilers from Alien Romulus. Now, the movie introduces something called Compound Z01, a mutagen derived from the xenomorph drone we saw in the first Alien movie. Oh yeah, that guy didn't die even after spending years in space. Now, Z01 is very much similar to the black goo from Ridley Scott's later Alien films, but it's not exactly black goo. In fact, director Fede Alvarez has described Compound Z01 as the semen of xenomorphs. That's saying something. So, in this video, we'll explore how exactly these two substances are different from each other, and how Z01 transforms the alien lore as we know it. Let's begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Oh man, what's all this black stuff?
What is black goo? Chemical, or Agent A03959X.91-15, is the formal name given to a mesmerizing liquid with the ability to create life and terraform planets. But it also has the power to destroy all life on an entire planet or moon. Due to its long and complex scientific name, it's more commonly referred to as black liquid, pathogen, or black goo. This substance is a highly potent virus-like mutagenic pathogen that contains millions of microorganisms. These microorganisms give the black goo its life-giving and destructive properties, making the liquid a living entity in itself. You could say that the substance basically houses billions of nano-AIs that do their thing on a host's DNA, rewriting it. Since we don't know how this super AI functions, the results are often unpredictable. From neomorphs and trilobites to vicious creatures like the offspring, everything is possible when the black goo pathogen comes into the picture. The black goo is believed to have been created by the engineers, though there are other theories about its origins. Interestingly, a specific strain of the black goo is also found in the royal jelly produced by a xenomorph queen, which leads to the creation of other queens or praetorians. Now, this is the reason why Compound Z01 came into existence. As I already told you, it was extracted from the xenomorph drone found in the Nostromo. According to the Alien role-playing game, the black goo, in its viscous liquid form, atomizes when released into the atmosphere, killing or altering all living things within range. Simply put, any living being that comes into contact with the black goo will either die horribly, give birth to monsters, or become a monster themselves. The second one happened to Kay in Alien Romulus. In fact, for over a decade, Michael Fassbender's character David studied the black goo and its effects on various life forms, including humans. He concluded that the pathogen was essentially a weapon designed to cleanse entire planets of unwanted life forms without using fire, ammunition, radiation, or other destructive forces that could damage the planet's geology. The first step in this environmental cleansing would be introducing the black goo to organisms through physical contact, ingestion, or even airborne spores. Once a living being comes into contact with the liquid, one of several possible outcomes will occur. In Romulus, Kate injected herself with Z01 and all hell breaks loose for her. So, what exactly happened to Kay? And what is Z01 if it's not the black goo? How is Z01 extracted from black goo? Well, to begin with, you could say that Z01 is a reformed form of the black goo pathogen, which in turn was present within the xenomorph drone that scientists kept at Renaissance Station. So, some believe it's safe to assume that the engineers manufactured the black goo and even the original form of xenomorphs, but it is possible that they failed to contain the beast and resorted to destroying it. Then came David, who got his hands on the black goo and started to experiment on it, which resulted in the creation of xenos. Yeah, even if you want to discard this, it's been well established that the xenomorphs are the result of the black goo pathogen. However, there's yet another theory that I think fits well as far as the creation of the black liquid is concerned. I guess the engineers didn't create the xenomorphs, but rather found them already fully evolved in their deadly form. Despite recognizing the xenomorphs as perfect killing machines, the engineers sought to harness their destructive power. To achieve this goal, the engineers deconstructed the xenomorph's DNA and extracted the base material for the black goo. The black goo, derived from the xenomorph's DNA, served as a potent tool for the engineers to either seed life on other planets or obliterate entire civilizations. Both the xenomorphs and the black liquid share the characteristic of being living parasites, thereby lending credence to this theory. Now, this is also what happens in Alien Romulus. You see, Rook, the android, basically works on the alien species and extracts the black liquid. You have to remember that since it was found in the xenomorph, it wasn't in its purest form. This stuff is then worked upon further by Rook and others to extract the Z01 compound. Interestingly though, our friend Rook said that Z01 had the ability to heal wounds and whatnot. basically a cure-all elixir. Although that was partly true, the after effects it had on people it came in contact with were disastrous. Just ask Kay, who not only birthed an alien hybrid within an egg, but got her breast milk transformed into a black liquid-like substance, on which the offspring later fed on. This was, quite a grotesque thing to see, given how the offspring's secondary xenomorph-like jaw sucked on Kay to feed itself and grow bigger. But the question is, if Z01 wasn't really a cure, why did Rook suggest Kay taking it? I believe the answer is simple. He lied to Kay because he wanted Z01 to survive whatever was happening on Renaissance Station. He knew that there was a certain chance that the compound would be destroyed or lost, but hoped that it would continue to survive within Kay. Furthermore, it also meant that he was witnessing firsthand what Z01 could do to a person. You know, kinda like an unauthorized and unethical human trial, which is something that Weyland-Yutani does quite often in the comics. How does Z01 work? Well, we don't exactly know how Z01 works on living beings because we've seen just 2 examples of the substance coming in contact with living beings. The mouse that was shown in the film was given a bit of compound 01 and it immediately returned to life. However, the mouse soon went through some really horrific mutations, which transformed it into a monstrous creature. If you compare this with the black goo from the Prometheus and Covenant movies, you'd remember the fates of men like Fifield. They got transformed into monstrous beings known as anathema, or abominations. These creatures are highly aggressive and nearly unrecognizable from their original form. After exposure to the black goo, Fifield mutated into a violent, resilient monster, requiring extreme force to finally bring him down. Anyway, coming back to the mouse, the poor creature soon died. But there's yet another fate that Z01 can bestow upon its subject. Sometimes those infected with the black goo end up harboring a deadly parasite. In some cases, these hosts, like Kay, don't transform like the anathema, but instead carry a parasite that gestates inside them. You see, there were no visible changes that happened in the case of Kay. I mean, apart from the fact that she became heavily pregnant in the span of less than an hour. If I compare this with what happened in Ridley Scott's later Alien films, let's take Charlie Holloway, for instance. After being exposed to the pathogen, he began to mutate before Meredith Vickers ended his life to stop the spread of the virus. The pathogen affected his reproductive system, leading to the bizarre conception that resulted in the impregnation of his partner Elizabeth Shaw with the trilobite. Whether Holloway's sperm was mutated or if he was carrying the trilobite that then transferred to Shaw is unclear, though the latter seems more likely, especially since Shaw was sterile. It's also unknown if trilobites specifically prefer female hosts. If Holloway would have given birth to the trilobite himself, Shaw didn't get infected with the pathogen itself, only the trilobite embryo, which only meant that the black goo doesn't spread through sexual contact, but does impact the reproductive system, as shown by the umbilical cord-like structure linking the trilobite to Shaw during its removal. As far as Kay is concerned, she injected Z01 into herself and she was already pregnant, unlike Elizabeth Shaw. This means that if Z01 will most definitely mess with your pregnancy, so like alcohol, try to stay away from Z01 during pregnancy. And if you're not really pregnant, then you'd experience a burst of life, like the mouse did, but it wouldn't stay for long as you'd mutate and perish. Either way, I don't recommend the compound's use in any capacity now. Why did Weyland-Yutani want Z01? Rook, in the movie, explains that Weyland-Yutani was tired of sending in people to various planets for their terraforming and mining operations, only to lose the workers to the extreme weather conditions and new diseases every cycle. Waiting for evolutionary advantages wasn't viable for a company greedy enough to sacrifice its own employees, so they needed a quick fix to end this fragility of the human body. Enter Compound Z01. The compound was supposed to build humans into more robust versions of themselves, creatures who depended less on unimportant things like food and oxygen. Imagine beings as intelligent as humans, but with the physical capabilities of xenomorphs. These mutated humans would be able to control their metabolism at will. A higher metabolic rate would lead to immediate growth of body parts, which is exactly what happened to the offspring born out of Kay. On the other hand, the people would also be able to restrict their metabolism to a bare minimum in order to sustain conditions where survival isn't possible. Interestingly, this totally changes the character of Weyland-Yutani as a firm. Yeah, they're still an evil organization who still focused solely on profits, but they no longer seem to want xenomorphs in order to weaponize them. Weyland-Yutani only wants the aliens so that their physical marvel could be used to create better and stronger humans. When Rook says that his experiments and the discovery of Z01 was to help humanity, it felt like he was trying to be the nice guy. You know, like someone who was trying to find a cure or a vaccine. but on a deeper inspection, it becomes clear that he was just talking about creating a mutagen. This aspect of Weyland-Yutani's character ties the company to all other iterations that we've seen across the franchise. I'm happy that it all ties to the first two Alien films, and even Ridley Scott's later Alien films, namely Prometheus and Covenant. In fact, Rook also mentions that the search that began with Mr. Peter Weyland's expedition finally came to an end with the discovery of Z01. So yeah, that's why the company wants Z01 in particular, and xenomorphs in general. But you know what? Knowing the company, I'm sure if they really get their hands on what they seek, they wouldn't stop at that. Weyland-Yutani lives to become more and more superior. In the universe, they're an economical giant and have influence over nearly every wing of the government. So, it's only a matter of time that they decide they want to use the xenomorph and their DNA for more sinister purposes, such as weaponization.
We'll face it together. Let's go.
What happened to the offspring? Is it dead? Kay ultimately doesn't survive, as no one could endure a xenomorph's proboscis feeding on them. When Rain returns, she initially struggles to match the monster's strength. However, she eventually manages to eject the creature into space, where it's battered by thousands of tons of sand and gravel. Surprisingly, the offspring survives both the vacuum of space and being thrown into Jackson's ring. Whether it actually died remains unclear, as it endured damage that would have killed other xenomorphs, but was only barely defeated. When other xenomorphs died in the film, their heads exploded, and their acidic blood floated within the bowels of Renaissance Station. But that's not what happened with the offspring. It's possible that it was killed off-screen, but we can't be certain. If the offspring is still alive, Weyland-Yutani would undoubtedly want to get their hands on it. They spent years searching for the Nostromo and the alien it carried, eventually succeeding. If the creature survived, Weyland-Yutani could once again step into their play the god role. Think about it. The offspring took many of its features from the xenomorphs. We know that xenomorphs can survive in space, so it's not very wrong to assume that even the offspring would survive in space. Now, if that's actually going to happen or not, is pure speculation. But all I'm saying is that there's a serious possibility that the offspring is not dead. I mean, they wouldn't really do that, getting a monster so deeply embedded in the lore only to make it serve as a final boss. The introduction of the offspring likely wasn't just for shock value. It could pave the way for more mutated creatures like the xenomorph hybrid, turning a branch of humanity into its greatest threat. This hybrid might have additional dangerous traits, possibly including the xenomorph's acidic blood. While traditional xenomorphs are effective predators that hunt in packs, the hybrid stands out for its ruthless efficiency and apparent enjoyment of hunting, especially when targeting Rain. Originating from more intelligent creatures, the hybrid could pose a more strategic and cerebral threat. With the compound that created it still on the ship carrying Rain and a wounded Andy, this new xenomorph offspring or its variation could easily return as a recurring villain in the Alien universe. Did engineers experiment on themselves with black goo? Director Fede Alvarez explained that you could consider the black goo to be the semen of xenomorphs. Yeah, it's the thing that writes their genetic code, in addition to writing the genetic code of the creatures it comes in contact with, and even that of the hosts of xenomorph facehuggers. Could it be possible that engineers were simply a super-advanced humanoid race who found the xenomorphs, experimented on the xenomorphs to extract the black goo, and finally started to mass-produce the substance to use it as a weapon of destruction and a tool of creation? Unlike Weyland-Yutani, who were yet to control the violent mutations of the pathogen, the engineers learnt to control. And finally, they started to use it on themselves. I find sense in this theory. I mean, this also explains why the offspring had the pale white skin of engineers. What happened to the compound at the end of the movie? At the end of the movie, Rain successfully gets rid of the offspring, promises the severely damaged Andy that she'll fix him, and sets course for the planet Ivaga, which, as it happens, is a real planet known as HD 63765b. In a scene reminiscent of Ripley's final log at the end of the first Alien movie, Rain records a voice log for her cryopod, expressing hope for her uncertain journey to Ivaga. Just as Ripley was eventually found after recording her message, it's likely Rain could have a similar fate. She's also tearfully promised to fix Andy, showing she's determined to keep her promises. Rain's arrival on Ivaga could open up new possibilities, especially since she has the vials of Z01 with her. The sequel could explore how this substance interacts with the indigenous life on Ivaga. Additionally, Rook makes it fairly clear that Weyland-Yutani's interest in harnessing the xenomorphs and the compounds created by the engineers, like Z01, is far from over. Romulus ends with the potential for more xenomorph encounters, and Rain's survival, along with Andy's, leaving room for future stories. Since the movie is set 37 years before Aliens, there's plenty of time to explore what happens next. This could also be a chance to delve deeper into the origins and effects of the black goo. which Alvarez used to create the terrifying hybrid xenomorph. While there's no confirmed sequel yet, the positive reviews, low budget, and strong box office performance suggest that Alien Romulus 2 could very well happen, especially as Disney ventures further into R-rated content. If Romulus succeeds, a follow-up could continue Rey's story, exploring her life on Ivaga and the potential dangers the black goo brings. The filmmakers have many directions they could take, and bringing Rey back would be a natural choice. So yeah, that was all in this one, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the sequel. After what Mr. Alvarez did, there's serious hope that the franchise might just get revived. Not just revive, it may thrive. Oh, and if you like the video, do stick around and turn on that bell icon, because we have loads of Alien videos lined up. And if you liked the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks everyone.